Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta, and you're watching Basis Points, where we dive deep into the numbers and the stories that drive our economy and shape our world. The headlines. For the first time in more than 2 years, the Philippine peso drops to 59 against the US dollar. The PSEi index breaks a 4-day winning streak. We'll discuss the latest market movements with Regina Capital's equity analyst, Jasper Onap, later on in the show. Finance Secretary Ralph Recto meets with JP Morgan executives to explore new opportunities for collaboration. And India's Adani Group slams a U.S. indictment accusing officials of fraud and bribery. First, let's take a look at the financial markets. Wall Street's main indices close higher after a volatile session, with both the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500 reaching weekly highs. The Dow jumped over 1%, driven by a rally in cloud company Salesforce, after 3 brokerage firms raised their price targets on that stock.
I think we saw an initial reaction to the election that was good because, first of all, I think investors were concerned we were going to end up with a divided government and nothing would get done. We did end up with a unified government, and one that seems very focused on deregulation, and which is all good for stocks, and that was the initial push in stocks. I think after about a week or so, investors started to look and say, yes, the deregulation is good for stocks, but some other issues may not be as good. For example, tariffs could potentially be inflationary. They started to get nervous. They pulled back. They started buying lower volatility, more defensive names. And then, the Fed spoke, said, things are still looking pretty good. But CPI came out and it was maybe slightly higher than expected, and certainly did not suggest that there were going to be huge rate cuts going forward. So it seems like every day a new piece of news comes out that causes an about face.
European stocks also closed in the green as investors digested corporate earnings and economic data. The FTSE 100 rose 0.8%, the DAX climbed 0.7%, and the CAC 40 edged higher by 0.2%. Here in the Asia-Pacific, markets are higher, tracking Wall Street's gains overnight. Investors are digesting Japan's October Consumer Price Index, which came in at 2.3%, slightly lower than September's 2.4% core inflation. In the commodities market, Brent crude is up 0.2%, trading $74 a barrel, while gold is unchanged, trading at $2,670 per troy ounce. Now, for the first time in over 2 years, the Philippine peso falls to the 59 level against the greenback. The peso closed at this level on Thursday, weaker by 9 centavos from the previous day's close of 58.91. The decline comes amid increased demand for safe haven assets like the U.S. dollar, driven by Donald Trump's win in the U.S. elections. Now, this drop in the peso could put pressure on import costs and inflation, affecting the purchasing power of Filipinos. This Friday, the peso opened slightly stronger at 58.95 against the greenback. Finance Secretary Ralph Recto meets with senior executives from JP Morgan to discuss opportunities for collaboration and initiatives. One of the key topics was the potential inclusion of Philippine government-issued securities in the JP Morgan Bond Index. The Finance Department says this move would improve foreign investor access to peso-denominated government bonds, lower transaction costs, and increase the country's appeal as a global investment destination. In a nutshell, this could attract more foreign capital to the Philippines, strengthening the economy and providing funding for infrastructure and development projects. JP Morgan is a global leader in financial services, serving the world's largest corporations, governments, and institutions. On another front, Ayala Corporation's e-mobility initiatives receive a boost from the Asian Development Bank. The ADB approves loans of up to $100 million, or about 5.9 billion pesos, for the company's subsidiary, AC Mobility Holdings. The Multilateral Development Bank says that the loan will help fund the procurement and installation of a nationwide electric vehicle charging network. The project, which entered its pre-construction phase this year, is expected to be fully operational by 2032. AMHI has already installed 35 charging stations in several regions. This development will accelerate the Philippines' transition to sustainable transportation, creating jobs, reducing emissions, and improving energy efficiency nationwide. Metro Pacific Investments Corporation's chairman Manny Pangilinan will temporarily assume the role of chairman and CEO of the company's toll road unit. This follows Rogelio Singson's transition into a new role within the broader MPIC group. Meanwhile, Metro Pacific Tollways Corporation appoints a new president and COO. Ari Perez, who brings extensive experience, takes on the role. He previously served as the president and CEO of the Clark International Airport Corporation and senior VP for corporate services at the Basis Conversion and Development Authority. Elsewhere in the world, India's Adani Group slams a U.S. indictment accusing officials of fraud and bribery. The conglomerate's chairman, Gautam Adani, one of the world's richest people, was indicted in New York for his alleged role in a $265 million scheme. Adani and 7 other defendants are accused of paying Indian government officials bribes worth millions of dollars to secure solar energy contracts, resulting in more than $2 billion in profits. The Adani Group is calling the allegations baseless. They also say that they will pursue all possible legal recourses. Shares and bonds of Adani companies dropped sharply after the indictment, and Adani Green Energy canceled a $600 million bond sale. This case could have wide-ranging impacts on global business, particularly in emerging markets like India, potentially raising questions about corporate governance and investor confidence in the region. We're taking a quick break. Please stay with us as we dive deep into the numbers and the narratives that matter most to your bottom line. Welcome back to Basis Points. Trading at the Philippine Stock Exchange opened just a few minutes ago. Let's take a look at the initial figures. Right now, as of 9:40 this morning, the PSE index is down sharply, down by 1%, back at the 6,700 level. We're at 6,792 right now. This comes after the PSE, fell to the 6,800 level just yesterday on profit taking, snapping out of a 4-day rally, which brought the index up by about 4.7%. So we're seeing profit taking continue. Yesterday, we lost 1.61% to 68.63. Right now, we are at 67.92. We've lost another a little over 1%. Now, the bloodbath is pretty much all across the board, except for the mining and oil counter. That's the only one in the green right now. The broader all shares index is down by just 0.3% to 37.97. The financials, industrial, holding firms, services counters, and property counters are down. And again, the only sector up right now is the mining and oil counter, bucking that downtrend, up by just 0.5%. Now, to help us make sense of these numbers, we're joined via Zoom by Jasper Onap. He's an equity analyst at Regina Capital. Hi, Jasper, and welcome to the show.
Hello, good morning. Thank you so much for having me today.
Okay, Jasper, after a 4-day rally, which saw the PSE index up by about 4.7%, we're seeing a sharp sell-off. What are the main catalysts driving this, and what does the weakness of the peso, we're at a 2-year low, what does that have to do with the losses we've been seeing over the past 2 days?
Understood. So as you can see, coming from the 7,500 levels, going up the peak of the market for the year, and then we're bottoming out at 1,600 with a bloody correction of 1,000 basis points, and now we're coming from Friday until the 4-day of rally to about 4.7% increase, and now we're at barely at 6.8 levels, or 6.792 us today. But that's just merely about the profit taking happened yesterday, and primarily attributed as well to the peso depreciating against the US dollar at 59, since that was, I believe that was since October of 2022. Well, that is, I guess, that's primarily also attributed. Then we have recording a balance of payment of a deficit with a balance of trade deficit as well. And this depreciating peso against the US dollar poses us a potential higher inflationary risk. As you know, again, we have a balanced trade of a deficit, and as we are very dependent on our importation for commodities, and some of it are now our agricultural products, this might really pose us inflation risk going forward. So that again, the Philippine peso depreciating really affects our economy in a negative way.
Correct. Speaking of the depreciation of the peso, this comes as the dollar continues to strengthen. The dollar is hovering at around a one-year high, whereas the Philippine peso, on the other hand, we're at a two-year low, driven by expectations of prolonged higher rates in the U.S. and inflationary pressures. How do you see this affecting monetary policy here in the Philippines? The BSP's Monetary Board is going to be meeting mid-December to set interest rates. Expectations are for a cut in interest rates of 25 basis points. BSP Governor Eli Remolona Jr. has said in the recent weeks that the BSP is on an easing cycle. But given the weakness that we're seeing in the peso as of late, do you think that they're going to be pausing on those rate cuts, or do you think that a 25 basis point cut is forthcoming?
Yeah, so again, what have BSP Governor Remolona have stated earlier this week, Tuesday, I believe, that we are still in an easing phase. And considering that our inflation rate is at 2.3, is still at a target of 2 to 4% of the government, we do really have to consider what BSP Governor Remolona is thinking. If he wants to further boost the economy spending with lower interest rates, but he also have really to consider, or as he have stated and new statements, that the BSP really now is data dependent, and we're looking at the next inflation print or inflation data that's coming up. And if so, that really happens, that BSP Governor Remolona continues to rate cuts by this December meeting, then peso might really decline or depreciate against the US dollar going further. And again, that poses us a very huge risk or negative impact, not only in our economy as well as in our market as well.
Speaking of the peso, again, forecasts are that the peso could weaken to 60.25 by the year end. Considering all the economic indicators and the geopolitical tensions, how realistic is this projection? And what are the key drivers that could affect the peso's direction in the next couple of months?
Yeah, so for the peso depreciation, we actually look at not only from the rate cuts coming from the BSP coming this December, what we also have to reconsider the U.S. economy strengthening going forward throughout this December with their inflation rate prints and job prints by December as well. And if so, that the BSP actually continues its rate cut by December, and then the U.S. economy prints a very strong economy by December, closing of the year, then that projection of 6.25, the peso, is very much likely if that much to happen.
Okay, well, all right. Analysts also project various targets for the PSE index. Given the market's volatility, what levels are achievable, and what are the factors that could influence the PSEi between now and the end of the year?
Yeah, so for the PSA or the market at least, now we can see that again, bottoming up 6,500 and coming to 6,900s. Now we're at 6,800, now high 6,700. We would expect that the market would really consolidate. As much as optimistic, I want to be optimistic about the market going forward, it is very much unlikely that it will go up the way it fell. And I guess primary catalyst going forward would really be the rate cuts coming from the BSP, and what would primarily affect, or what would be the outlier, or I guess, should I say, out of the battle curveball that might happen if prices do increase, is really coming from foreign investors. Just like what we have seen, I believe, in Tuesday with the higher than 2% increase by the market. So it really depends on the foreign investors, what they see in the market, if it could actually potentially go up going forward.
Okay. In the meantime, Jasper, with equities and the peso seeing sharp movements, what's your advice for investors trying to navigate this volatile market? Should they seek defensive plays, or are there windows or pockets of opportunity? And if so, what are they?
Okay, so again, coming from this cycle that we're having, or the trend that we're actually going to persist, there are actually several sectors that we're actually looking for, which is primarily consumer and banking. Consumer, on the other hand, is actually performing really well, garnering double-digit growth in 9 months as of 9 months of 2024. And actually, this is backed by the supportive data that was just printed, because even though the GDP declined by 5.2%, we actually have garnered or recorded a higher household consumption expenditure of 5.1%, which is higher than the previous one of 4.6%. So going forward with this, with depending on the risk appetite of investors, they might actually forward with perhaps going towards REITs, for example, because they are primary beneficiaries when rate cut happens, because this would boost demand in the real estate sector.
Okay, that's all the time we have for now. Thank you, Jasper, for sharing your thoughts on the market with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
And that was Jasper Onap, an equity analyst at Regina Capital. We're taking a quick breather. Basis Points will be right back. Welcome back to Basis Points. The Gohoy Energy Corporation, a member of the Yenko Group, is officially launching its 27-megawatt peak solar power project in Bohol. The solar farm is the first utility-scale solar facility in the province, featuring more than 40,000 solar panels spread across 22 hectares. The project is expected to generate 41,000 megawatt hours of electricity annually, enough to power over 18,000 homes. It will also offset over 28,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions each year, aligning with the Philippines' ambitious environmental goals to combat climate change and to promote sustainable energy. This development represents a significant step forward in the country's transition to renewable energy, promoting energy security and creating jobs in the region. Overseas, Amazon may soon be under the microscope of EU regulators as the bloc's enforcement of its Digital Markets Act ramps up. Reuters reports an investigation could be launched into whether Amazon unfairly favors its private label products over third-party sellers on its marketplace. The Digital Markets Act, enacted last year, prohibits anti-competitive practices by tech giants. If found guilty, Amazon could face penalties of up to 10% of its global revenue, a figure that could reach billions. Amazon has denied any wrongdoing, asserting that it's been compliant with the EU's rules. And before we go, if you think getting your little ones or even yourself to do chores is a daily uphill battle, well, you're not alone. But a new app in Sweden is set to change that, turning household tasks into a more rewarding experience. The concept is simple. Users enter their chores into the Accord app. Family members can track progress, send reminders if a task is overdue, and express appreciation once a task is completed. Launched in September, the app was developed by a group of engineering students.
And my dad was really nagging at me a lot to get my laundry, clean my room and stuff like that. And he knew I had just started programming at KTH. So finally one day he basically had enough and said, like, why don't you just program an app so I don't have to nag at you all the time about getting your laundry. And so Accord was our sort of answer to achieving family harmony and tackling these problems that like almost every family face on a daily basis.
This innovation could make a significant impact on the global business community, particularly in the tech and productivity sectors. Apps like this can drive demand for smarter, more interactive solutions that enhance work-life balance and improve efficiency both at home and in the business world. And that's it for Basis Points. I'm Maiki Oreta. We'll be back tomorrow, rather on Monday, for more news on the financial markets and more. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo news channel, always on top.